Hello, you are listening to From McClay to Zama. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who worked for the U.S. Army at Camp Zama, Japan, from 1953 to 1955. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home. Welcome to episode 22, Letters from Home. This covers letter 59 and some letters I found from Helen and John to my Aunt Vern. This summer, I've had so many adventures. I took a trip to the farm I grew up on in Pennsylvania. I've seen relatives and friends from around the country. I went to Scotland for the first time, and I just got back from California. Throughout these travels, I've been thinking about the podcast, and I wonder what was the one question I would ask my Aunt Peg about the letters if I had the opportunity. Well, weird as it may seem, the number one thing I was curious about is where did Blondie come from and why was she the only pet that the family ever had? From my childhood, when Clancy the Irish setter lifted his leg and peed on Aunt Peg at a Memorial Day party, to my adulthood when my aunts made Sarah Dorothy Ann, my pit bull, stay outside during a visit, they never hid their dislike for my menagerie, as my husband calls it. I've almost always had 2 or 3 dogs, multiple cats, and a variety of small pets. Both of my parents' families were strictly no pet. So the first thing they did when they got married was to get a beagle. They never looked back. My parents were the ones bringing home strays when I was a kid, and I thought that everyone was allowed to bring home strays. We never had the same breed twice, and we usually had at least 2 dogs, an Irish setter, a poodle mix, a shepherd mix, a basset hound, a Vizsla, a couple of unknowns, and finally, the Cocker Spaniel. It was mentioned that John Harnish never allowed any of his children to have pets, and a majority of his children didn't allow pets in their own homes when they were adults. The story I remember about Blondie was that one of Helen's relatives passed away. And Blondie the dog showed up at the back gate at McClay Street shortly afterward from 10 blocks away. So whose dog was she? And why is everyone making such a fuss about her in the letters? It's just out of character for these people. Last night when I should have been sleeping, I figured it out. Yesterday I was organizing and came across a photo of my mom with her last dog, Daisy, a blonde Cocker Spaniel. Is that a coincidence? I was thinking it was a good thing that Daisy passed away a few weeks before my mom did, because she never really got along with my dogs and was strictly my mom's girl. Every time she was at my house, she growled and snapped at my pups, and she was elderly, in her defense. Then I realized that I could look at family death dates and addresses, and maybe I could figure it out. So I got up, because I couldn't sleep anyway. And the only close relative, I got up and, started looking. The only close relative who died in the date range of 1945 to 1953 was Helen's mother. I looked up her address. Harry and Margaret Robinson lived at 337 Hamilton Avenue, exactly 10 blocks from the McClay Street home. If there's one thing I know about John from the letters, he sure loved Helen a lot. Would he deny her the opportunity to take her deceased mother's dog? Don't think so. It also explains why Bern and Peg would talk about this dog the way they do. I'm so proud of myself. My mom talked about Blondie like she was always a fixture at the McClay Street home as she was growing up. And that would fit because she was only 4 or 5 when Blondie came to live with them. She said that Blondie was always lying at her grandfather's feet, and that when they counted the church envelopes, read, or did puzzles. After the surprise revelations of the last letters, I've decided to read some letters from Helen and John that I found in the box. I know where Peg gets her messy script from. Graphomotor problems are generally inherited, and it was definitely from John. Helen's cursive is beautiful and very legible. John's is messy and much like Peg's. It has taken me so long to decipher it. At least I grew up reading Peg's cursive, but John's has been a mystery. It's also interesting to note that letter 59 seems like a concerted effort on Byrne's part to paint a rosy picture of their life in Japan. Even though there's an earthquake, did Peg tell her that she told them about the strippers? I'm guessing not, as Byrne talks about the event, leaving that part out. Or Byrne was just more prudent. So let's get started with letter 59 from Byrne, written December 2nd, 1953. Dearest folks, such a lot of things have happened lately, or are being planned to happen, that the world has a very rosy hue this morning. We received the letter telling us of Pete's gift, and that naturally we were both thrilled to our ears. We have written and told her that we will be at Fuji View Hotel, and you can be sure we will be hanging around the telephone on Christmas Day. Letter number 2 is from Helen and was written from Maclay Street on August 1st, 1953. Dear Bernice, I do hope by this time you have received your mail. I guess when you do, you will have to take half a day off to read it all. I sent a box to you today and one to Peg. In the one to Peg, I put 2 of your little hats, the brown velvet and the green jersey one. I forgot to send your clock, so I will send it at the beginning of next week with some other things. Miriam, Isabel, and Mrs. Shop were here on Thursday evening. Miriam took a lot of the clothes that Anna May didn't want, so no, I guess the rest will go to the rummage sale. This is Sunday, August 2nd. We had a little storm this morning, but so far the rain hasn't made it one bit cooler. Even Dad seems to mind the heat today. Won't be grand when it gets cool. We went to church this morning. Not many people stayed because we are still over in the Sunday school room and the ceiling is low and the heat just seems to hang in there. Mr. Wanbach and Reverend Stamitz ask again about you girls. They are very much interested, especially Mr. Wanbeck. Dad said it certainly should please him if you would send him a card. His address is 2932 North 2nd Street. Mr. E.S. Wanbach. I'm enclosing this letter, thinking perhaps you might want to return it with a notation of some kind on it. We had a letter from Dan and Margaret since they left. They stopped by Altoona to see Aunt Dora and Ruth, and then at Derry to see the J.D. Juniors, and at Greensburg to see Bob Kramer. They finally reached home about 8 p.m. on Sunday evening. Aunt Gert, that's Margaret's aunt, went along back with them. When Betty and I each had them to dinner while they were here, we invited Aunt Gert too. She surely seemed to enjoy it and seemed glad that we wanted her to visit. Margaret says it pays to take a vacation. When they started out to come to Harrisburg, somewhere she found $10. And when she went back and she found out she had been promoted to a higher grade and that her job now doesn't mean so much work connected with it. She's rather lucky, isn't she? They want us to come out for a while, but not me in the hot weather, for it is always hotter and more humid there in St. Louis. So here I stay. I just had an idea. I wonder if it would be better if I would write one to one of you about Wednesday and then write to the other one of you on Sunday. That way, when the mail starts coming, you ought to get one in the beginning of the week and one at the end. Barbara and Ronnie are leaving early tomorrow morning for Ocean City for about a week. They are hoping that Ronnie will be sent over to the Mediterranean to meet his ship, for when that comes back, it will go into dry dock for repairs in Philadelphia for 6 months. So all the crew will be located there too. Betty and Barbara have both written to you girls lately, for Betty called for the correct address on Thursday evening. Betty has another week of her vacation beginning the 10th, but as far as I know, they aren't going anywhere. But you never can tell about these harnesses. When Miriam, Isabel, and Mrs. S. were here on Thursday for the close, they read the letters and got some good laughs too. Well, I made some lemonade and had some pretzels, and Isabel left saying how nice and cool it seemed here. She almost went to sleep sitting at the table. She says that their apartment was almost unbearably hot for both Pearl and her father say they like it that way. I surely pitied her. She says it is morning before she can sleep. Miriam is certainly not putting on any more weight. If anything, she's thinner. She looks very well. Guess what? The phone just rang and I answered. Guess who? Mary Reed. Wanting to know if you were going to Grove City, and I guess wanting a ride. Well, did I ever lay it on thick? I thought she'd pass out when I said in a calm and cool voice, that I hardly thought you would be going to Grove City since you were in Japan. She said, Japan? And then I started with the story. It really ended up that she has your address. So look out. She thinks she has something to tell the others. And is she ever going to be fooled? Well, Bernice, I guess this is all the news to date. Get Peg's letter for the other news. Lots of love, Helen. The next letter is letter number 3 from John, written August 2nd, 1953. Dear Honey Bunch, glad to hear you are now receiving your mail. Did you receive the letter I wrote you? Everybody is asking about you and Peggy, how you like Japan, what are you doing, etc. So you will have to keep this information rolling to us, and we will pass it along. That's the price you and all have to pay for leaving your happy home to adventure overseas. When next you go shopping and are at a loss for what to get me, without vices, haha, how about Japanese records or some Thai class? So just a suggestion to help you out. Another suggestion, why don't you and Peggy schedule your letter writing to us, one right at the end of a week and one in the middle, so that it will not be so long between receiving letters from you. When more than a week goes by without hearing from you, we begin to wonder if you might be sick. Tell Peggy to keep her chin up and she will make it okay. I'll write her soon. I wrote to her and don't know if she's received my letter yet. Tell her to be careful about how she throws her yens around and how about sending a sample yen or some other money. Talking about money, you left your checking account in bad shape. It is now formally straightened out and your checking account balance is $68.58. So if you have enrolled in school to learn to speak Japanese and the kids predict you will soon, give it up. Tell them you aren't going to give it up because you must learn to speak the language before you may come home. Another price for leaving home. Don't I sound tough, honey? Just like an impossible father in one of the fiction stories you love to read. Helen is impatiently waiting for me to finish so she can mail this letter. So love to you and your kid's sister, my little redhead, Daddy. Maclay Street to Zama, letter number 4, from Helen, August 9th, 1953. Dear Bernice, I said in your letter on Wednesday that I would write to you, one of you, in the middle of the week and to the other on Sunday. So it seems when Sunday comes, I have a lot to tell both of you. So I'll write whenever I get enough to say. You said in your letter that Dad's hard to buy for when you want to send him something. He suggested today that perhaps you could send him some Japanese records. You said, too, that you bought a fruit basket. What kind of fruits do you have over there? Now, we are coming into an abundance of peaches and all kinds of plums and pears. No apples to eat yet, but lots to cook. The beans, cabbage, corn, etc. aren't so very nice because it's been too hot and dry, and now that we are having a little rain, the late vegetables may be better. The beans are small and tough, and the tomatoes have burn spots on them. I'm going to try to get a basket to can. That will be enough for us. Peg wanted to know what I was cooking, so I wrote some menus to her. What are you two eating that's different? I received a CE booklet about the convention in Colorado yesterday, so I thought you might like to know what's going on. I remailed it to you in another envelope in just regular mail. I'll let Dad explain to you about your bank account. I told Peg, but I'll tell you too, that I called Evelyn Hoffman to give her your new address, and she was glad to get it and is going to ask Margaret Alexander about information on chapters in Japan and send it to you with your notice. I wanted to tell you before, don't be afraid to wear your pin anywhere. Try to visit a chapter if possible. I think you might enjoy it and be glad you did. How about your coats? Bern, I had your red toffer cleaned, for it was too soiled around the collar and wrist to put away. It will be 2 weeks at least before I get an answer to this, and then we still won't know how long it takes for boxes to travel that far. You wanted to know what Esther wanted? Well, she sent me a clipping about Pastor Dougherty's church in Butler and asked Dad and I to stay at her house if we come to camp this year. A very nice letter. I told her I hardly thought that we'd be coming out this year, but they should come here and visit us. Have you sent her your new address yet? I suppose Mary Reed will be passing it out at Grove City this next week and feel really cheaty that she knows all about you. This is after church. Mrs. Spangler and Caroline asked me about you girls today and wanted to know how you're making out. I think we better get some bulletins printed so we don't have to repeat everything so often. Lillian is doing a pretty good job with the visitors, don't you think so? I'm glad to hear you are taking weekend trips together and seeing customs, etc. of the people. Dad is writing and Blondie is here waiting for me to go. Take care of yourselves and write soon and be good. Lots of love, Helen. It was nice hearing from John and Helen after all this time. When I was a child, Helen was no longer able to write, so I've never seen or heard her voice in writing before, and it sounded just like her. For the next podcast, we'll be preparing for Christmas and final preparations and descriptions of Christmas activities. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and rate. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.FromMcClayToZama.com, where I've posted photos and links from the episodes. The podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Patreon, and Amazon as well. New episodes will be available each Friday morning. The letters were written by my aunts Bern and Peg, transcribed by me. I write and record the show and have created the artwork and original music. Our producer is Zeke, our sound engineer is intern Sylvie, and the security is provided by intern Frey. Thanks to my great-grandparents, John and Helen, who loved us all and thought it was a good idea to save the letters. All rights reserved, 2024.